Welcome back to Dirty Hands of the Republic. We're going to continue our conversation now with Chris Andersen, retired HPD Sergeant from North Command. He spent 39 years in the department. We're going to talk to him about his experiences. So, Sergeant Andersen, when did you start with the department?
So I was in college up in New York, and I got recruited by HPD, started January 6th of 81.
Okay. And what class were you in?
95.
All right. And where did you go from the academy? Where did you really start?
Straight to North Shepherd.
Okay. And so when people talk about North Shepherd, Houston, we don't identify neighborhoods in this city. Nobody lives in a neighborhood in this city. Everyone always lives near a freeway exit. So like I grew up near the Southwest Freeway and West Belford.
Right.
Everybody knows where that is. Okay. And some people talk about, they grew up on the north side, but the north side is this broad area. So they either grew up off Irvington, or they grew up off North Shepherd, or they grew up off of, what would be West Tidwell, Parker, places like that, right? So just as you meet people, that's always kind of how we identify where we work and where we live is what freeway exit you're next to. So North Shepherd is the part immediately north of downtown, north of the 610 loop.
That's correct.
Between, I think it's 610 and Beltway 8.
Well, even back then, we had all of the inside of the loop down to Memorial Park.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I think that's 2 district now.
It is.
All right.
Yep.
So back then that was what, 6th district or what?
It was 3 district back then, and then 6th district was further to the north. So we had 3 and 6.
Okay. All right. And so you started there and you never left, or what happened?
No, I was there for 5 or 6 years. No, not even that. I was single, so I had a lot of time on my hand, and studied for the sergeant and made sergeant in 1985.
Okay. And you got promoted, you went back to North Shepherd?
No, sir, I went to homicide.
Okay. And how long were you in homicide?
Just a couple of years. So
what's the worst case you saw in homicide? What's like one that stands out in your memory? You're like, oh, that was horrible.
Okay. We got called to a scene, and there was like 4 children dead in a house, and a male in the living room, and a female in the car, in the garage. The car was running. She had committed suicide, and the carbon monoxide had seeped into the house and killed the rest of the family. And so, because I was single, didn't have any kids, my lieutenant thought it would be good if I processed the scene with all the children to kind of protect the older investigators. Okay, and so explain to the audience when you say process a scene, what does that involve? Well, so you're going to create a report describing everything, like a room or living room or bedroom, on the north wall from east to west, we're located. It's just a very descriptive report. And then also, back then there was just photography, maybe some video, but it's a very extensive process and a product that you produce. So back then, are you taking pictures? Yes. No, we had crime scene units that would actually do that. All right. Who's handling the body? I mean, is it the district of Harris County? What is it? Medical examiner's office? Yes, back then. Well, back then they would actually have a funeral home employee come out and transport the body to the ME's office.
Yeah, so, black body car, white body car.
Yep. Oh, really? Yep. Okay. So when did the ME's office start transporting? Oh, maybe about 8. Oh, when the recent history, just maybe 5-10 years ago. Okay, because when I started working at Central, we had, people would die all the time. And then the ME's office would come out and pick them up in a van. And of course, they always had interns, and everybody wanted to poke the body, Yeah, maybe it was further back. Again, I was in homicide back in the mid-1980s, so that was what we did back then. All right, so after homicide, where do you go? Let's see, homicide, then I went back to North, and I was a tactical sergeant for a couple of years there. Okay. And then I went to proactive internal affairs, where I ran sting operations against corrupt cops. So what percentage of the department would you say there's a definite problem of corruption amongst the officers?
So I'm a little bit jaded. So we were in an information clearinghouse, and all this information would be coming from like the DEA, or not so much from the FBI back then, but all these sources. And, we would try and connect the dots and find out, oh, this guy's been mentioned a few times. He's working with a mid-level dope dealer to set up other dope deals and stealing shipments of cocaine. And then, so we would take that information and then create a sting operation to arrest that corrupt police officer.
So how often did that happen?
It was a very long, extensive, you may have information, but it may not be actionable information. So maybe, I would say when I was there, probably every 6 months we would take down a dope ripper.
Okay, so that's 2 a year.
Well, that was for me.
Okay.
So that may have been my cases, but there was, there were 6 other guys in our office. Of course, we were in a secret office, that the department didn't know anything about. And so they may have other cases.
Okay. So I guess this is my question. So everybody complains about, the cops are corrupt. Officers, they're all evil or corrupt or whatever. What percentage of any given department, I know you know HPD intimately, but kind of just on average, would you say what percentage of officers could you define as actually corrupt?
I would say at any given time, particularly back then, within HPD, because of the hiring practices, we probably had 20 or 30 what I call meat eaters that were steadily ripping dope. They were police officers only because of the opportunity it afforded them to make money.
Out of 5,000?
Yep.
Okay.
But may I interject? So what kind of corruption are we talking about?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
by all means, tell me.
So I'm dealing with a narrow segment of, what I call the dope rippers. But then there's other types of police corruption. And so, I've been proactive. I didn't do it so much, but then you had the officer that pulled a female over on traffic and, goes, yeah, you got some warrants, but if you perform oral sex on me, I'll let you go.
How often would you say that happens?
Probably 1 or 2 every 3 every year that we could actually make an arrest on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any characteristic that is common amongst officers that are engaged in that kind of behavior?
So sometimes the department would have me go do a recruiting autopsy per se, and then we would go like, well, look back in this guy's history and recruiting package. Was there any red flags? Okay. So yeah, he got arrested 7 times as a juvenile for dope. All his immediate family are known dope dealers. And he failed the polygraph when it came to, trafficking narcotics, but you all hired him anyway because, maybe
Because he's the right skin color?
because you're the right skin
And
color.
diversity is our strength?
Yeah.
And we have to have a diversity in our
nailed it.
department? Okay.
You nailed it.
And so we overlook certain past behaviors because of certain skin color attributes that we think are going to benefit the department. And unfortunately, that blinds people to their decision matrix.
Not only that, but when I was there, they had lowered the standards so much that, okay, we got the skin color issue, but the overall recruiting standards had also fallen. So you also had some, white officers that were just as squirrely or corrupt.
And so what attributes would they have that?
Similar.
Okay. So is it your position that a department should avoid hiring people who have juvenile crime records?
My position is that we have to put all our money into the background investigations. Previous conduct is going to be an indicator of future conduct. And, if you have all these red flags, why are you hiring them?
Okay, question. Did you see any material difference between people who, say, came out of the military versus people who came out of college?
Yes, absolutely. And I can say this, being a college kid, the people coming out of the military were a lot more square, a lot more switched on than the college kids that we hired, for the most part.
So if you ran a police department, where would you focus your recruiting?
I would like to see people with military experience because I think it gives them a lot of real life experience, based also with some college.
So if it were up to you, would you go like to Fort Benning and Fort Bragg and just basically open up an HPD recruiting station right outside?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that, but nobody wants to do that. I've always wondered why.
I don't know.
Okay. But as far as college kids are concerned, though, when you focus a lot of your attention trying to hire people coming out of college, what problems?
Lack, and I can speak of this, lack of real life experience. So, in HPD, I was 19 years old, college kid, and I'm on the north side of Houston at night, working night shift. And so, I had to adapt real fast and develop some real life skills. But others, they weren't able to do that.
Okay. So would you say that people coming out of the military would be more proactive in their police work than people hired out of college?
Oh, yes, I for the most part.
Which is a very easy way of saying aggressive, because nobody wants to say aggressive police officer. So we try to say things like proactive police officer.
Well, aggressive is good as long as it's in the right context. You also saw where one case in particular where these officers, college kids, and they come out and they want to be aggressive and be seen as being proactive, but they pick on safe people.
Oh, okay.
Somebody that's not going to hurt them, so they're overboard. Like with some old lady that did some traffic violation, and they're like, look at me. But when it came to the robbery suspect who's got a gun, I'm not going to show up at that scene. It could be kind of scary.
Okay. So I was 17 when I joined the Army, and when I guess the Gulf War started in 1990.
91. Just Cause was 90.
The first Gulf.
Yeah, well, when the 82nd went in, I think it was 1990.
Yeah,
and then 1991 is when the actual war started, and then February 28th it ended, and then they started the what did they call it? Reduction in force. And I mean, they just were pushing people out by the thousands.
Under Clinton.
Yeah. So when I joined in 1995, my academy class had a lot of former military guys that had been pushed out, basically, and we're looking for a home. And that's I noticed that there was I think there were 3 academy classes a year, and like half of them were coming out of the military in almost each class, and it was just a really interesting kind of mentality because a lot of those guys were hard charging.
I found a big difference. For a couple of years, I was a field training supervisor at North. So I had, responsible for the rookies that came out, or for the people that were training the rookies that came out, and they'd be graded and assessed. And by far the biggest squirrels we had were the college kids without those life experiences, where again, the military guys were switched on.
Okay. All right. So you're doing proactive IAD, and so most of the corruption revolved around narcotics. Is that what
That was my specialty.
Okay.
That was my thing.
Did you work on the Noe Juarez case?
Which one is that?
He was the one that was going around the department buying firearms and vehicles and handing them out to, his cartel friends, really.
I was already gone about that. I know the lieutenant that was over proactive at the time. And there was some really good information about what he was doing, like for several years, until they were finally able to pull it together.
Yeah, because what I understand is when I was at Central, there was this cork board on the first floor, 61 Reasoner, that if you wanted to sell a weapon, you would go, post it with your phone number.
Right.
And I'd always kind of tempted myself to, that's a pretty nice shotgun. I think I'll get it. And you would call and, I sold that weapon. But nobody would ever ask, well, who'd you sell it to, right? Because you didn't ask that question. But it turned out that this guy, Noe Juarez, was
cartel
buying them all. So he was, he would go there all the time. And I would see him down there. And I think he was working DWI task force or something at the time.
I think he was on the TAC team.
Oh, he was on the TAC team?
Yes, South Central.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So you roll through that. How long did that assignment last?
I think about 3 years. You can only spend 5 years in proactive IAD. It wasn't, you can't make a career there.
Oh, you can't?
Nope.
They don't want you getting sucked into the
Or, yeah.
matrix there?
Well, you also get pretty jaded, or maybe you get too good at it. I don't know.
Okay.
Hey, and I'm being transparent, but my partner and I, we were actually criticized because they said that we were only targeting black officers, and that wasn't the case. If we got the information and we could put an operation together and do a sting operation, it didn't make any difference who it was. We weren't picking on.
Okay, so for the audience, I want to clarify something. When you say proactive IAD, it's not like you're actually going out and looking at officers, but you're receiving tips.
Yes.
Okay. And is it usually like an ex-girlfriend, ex-wife kind of tip?
It can be, but a lot of times it was information from back then. For me, was from the DEA.
Oh, the DEA had like informants that were interacting with these officers?
Well, yes and no. So what happens? The DEA makes a case. They knock somebody down, and the crew and one of those guys, they debrief him. He's going to tell everything about everything to make his federal sentence minimum. And he goes, yeah, we used, a year ago, they used an HPD officer to transport dope in his patrol car. And, maybe they have his name or something like that. Well,
because that's something like right out of Sicario, where they were using the police to transport dope.
It happens. It still happens.
It still happens?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, we would get that information and go, okay, well, that's good. But, that CI no longer has contact, or he's out of the picture. And, but that's a piece of the puzzle. And then more information would come in, And eventually we would get to the point where, this cop was usually working for some dope dealer, mid or upper level. And that's the guy I would target. And we would do him in a dope operation, and then flip him to be our special friend, our snitch, and then set up sting operations with every cop that he had working for him.
What was the biggest one you found? Like, what was the biggest network you found?
So a upset female.
Ex-girlfriend.
Oh Lord.
You got weed.
She was a topless dancer.
No.
Come on.
I'm shocked.
She had been dating this HPD cop.
Shocked again.
And he talked about ripping dope and how he was a big player, and so she wanted to get married, but he would not marry her because she was white, he was black, and his mom would be all upset.
That's racist.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, another girl working there knew all about it, and she was a spy. And so the information came to us. She became my new special friend. And, we started recording conversations, where he would allude to, dope dealing, but the FBI had a wiretap it was very complicated. And he was going to now start doing home invasions instead and have a crew. And at the station he was at, we were noticing that more and more police equipment was turning up missing, and people were reporting, hey, my ID's gone, or my raid jacket's gone. Well, he was stealing this stuff because he was going to outfit his own, police impersonator robbery crew to do the licks.
Oh.
I don't think I want to do this video anymore.
Hey, this is the dirty.
Yes,
this is the dirty hands.
Yes.
So, you're following these guys around, and so one, I guess, what would you call him? Shot caller, dope dealer, whatever, was working with how many officers? 3, 4, 5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 4.
He had 4. And what were those officers getting paid?
So for the most part, what they would do is he would set up dope deals with another mid-level dealer. So we're going to meet at the Fiesta Mart parking lot with, I'll have, my guys coming in with 6 kilos, and I'm coming in with, $120,000. We're going to meet and do the exchange. Well, so what they do instead of, I'm going to rip this guy of his dope or money, however you want to do it. But instead of doing it, the old-fashioned way with a bunch of thugs and, some wild shootout, where they know that I had set them up, they would have their cop come in and go, hey, this guy's going to show up. He's probably going to be driving a red SUV. You know, do a traffic stop on him, seize the dope. We'll meet later, and I'll give you your cut.
And the most important IAD question, I'm sure, is, did they have an extra job permit?
Hey,
That's what they're all fired for.
so they were making big money.
Okay. So like, are we talking like they would make 200, 300,000, or are we talking like $1 million?
Well, not $1 million, but it would just all depend on how big the shipment was.
What would they do with the money? Put it in their bank account?
Well, yeah. So we would clandestinely try and look into their lifestyle and see if we could, you know, that would be another indicator that we were on the right track.
Okay. And I mean, I know it's a silly question, but I have to ask it. Did anybody ever call the IRS and say, hey, we've got these officers making $500,000 a year and they're not reporting it on their income tax return?
No, nobody did that.
It's not on their W-2. See, like you only made $60,000.
They only worked for Al Capone
Okay.
one time.
But think about it, for, you know, half an hour's worth of work, you know, you make 20, 30,000, or, you know, maybe I don't give all the dope and then I've got another kilo or two and I'll go sell it somewhere.
Right. Okay. 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 Interesting. And are, to your knowledge, all these, I mean, are they in prison? Are they out of prison? Whatever happened.
Well, so yeah, they were taking them down. They got lengthy sentences, probably because it was nonviolent. They're all out now. I always think my big break was a corrupt cop on the Donald Sutton.